Let me tell you the Bible story of Abraham and his son, Isaac. This story is about a father who was asked by God to sacrifice his own son. It's a powerful story about trust and following what you believe in. Long ago, God told Abraham to do something very difficult to show his faith. We are going back in time to see what happened and how Abraham responded to this challenge. Why did God tell Abraham to sacrifice his own son? Imagine having to give up something very precious to you. What would you do? Let's find out what Abraham did and what we can learn from his story. Before we continue, if you're interested in stories like this, please give us a like and don't forget to subscribe. Let's begin by talking about how Abraham and Sarah were growing old, but they hadn't been blessed with any children. They prayed earnestly to God, asking Him to give them a child. Eventually, their prayers were answered, and God spoke to Abraham, saying, "You're a righteous man, Abraham, and I recognize your love for me. I will give you a child and many descendants as well." God promised to make his son the progenitor of a great nation. As God had promised, Abraham and Sarah were soon blessed with a beautiful baby boy, filling their hearts with immense joy. They named the baby Isaac. "O Lord, I have no words to express my gratitude to you for this precious gift you have given us," Abraham prayed with gratitude in his heart. Abraham and his wife Sarah watched with pride and joy as their son grew up into an obedient and loving child. Abraham diligently taught Isaac to love and worship the Lord, instilling in him the knowledge that he was a very special child, a promise fulfilled by God to Abraham and Sarah. Isaac learned his lessons well and made his parents proud. Later one night, God called Abraham. "Who is it?" Abraham asked, trembling. "It is me, Abraham, your Lord. I have come to ask you something," God replied. God's question was important. "Do you really love me?" It cut deep into Abraham's feelings and beliefs. How could he nor have love for the one who helped him through good and bad times? Abraham answered honestly, saying, "How can you ask, my Lord? I love you more than anything else," with a heart full of love and thanks. "Well then, will you do as I tell you to without questioning me?" God asked further. "Of course, God. I don't even know why you doubt that I will disobey any command you give me. I have spent my entire life loving, worshiping, and obeying you," Abraham assured. But God kept insisting on how difficult this task will be for him. However, Abraham claimed that he's willing to undergo any test, that anything God wishes of him, he will do immediately. God was happy to hear this. He decided to give Abraham instruction. "Tomorrow morning, as the sun starts rising, take your son Isaac to a mountain which I'll direct you to, and there I want you to offer him as a burnt sacrifice to me." Abraham couldn't believe what he was hearing. Offer his son to God, the child that God himself had given him. He even thought about what God had told him earlier about having many descendants. After God had promised him many descendants, Abraham realized that this promise couldn't come true unless he had a son. Despite the uncertainty, Abraham chose to trust in God. Still, the thought of sacrificing his own son weighed heavily on his heart, and he couldn't fathom how he would be able to carry out such a task. While lost in deep thought, God asked Abraham, "Is this too difficult for you? Does your love for your son mean more than doing what I am asking you to do?" Abraham said no to his worries. He said Isaac was a special gift from God, and if God wanted him back, he would give him back. Even though Abraham felt sad inside, he still believed strongly in God. Abraham was told that in the morning he will be guided to where he will make the sacrifice, which was in the land of Moriah, preparing him for the task ahead. The next morning, Abraham gathered his 2 servants and instructed them to prepare for a journey by saddling up and loading the donkey with wood. Then he called his son Isaac and shared with him the purpose of their journey. "My son, God wants us to make a burnt sacrifice, and you must come with me." Isaac, unaware of the plan, asked his father about the location. "Where are we going, father?" "We have to go to Moriah, son," Abraham replied. He explained that he didn't know the exact place, but trusted that God would show them the way. So Abraham, accompanied by his son and 2 servants, embarked on the journey to the place where God had instructed him to offer his son as a sacrifice. Though the thought of sacrificing his beloved son weighed heavily on his heart, he kept his feelings hidden from Isaac. They traveled for 2 whole days, relying on the food they had brought and resting along the way. Finally, on the 3rd day, Abraham spotted the mountain in the distance, the very place where God had commanded him to make the sacrifice. Upon their arrival, Abraham instructed his servants to wait with the donkey while he and Isaac proceeded further. "Isaac, you carry the wood, and I will carry the knife and coal. The coal is too hot for you to carry," Abraham directed, preparing for the solemn task ahead. As they climbed the mountain, Isaac looked at his father with confusion. "Father?" "Yes, my dear child," Abraham responded gently. "You said God asked you to make a burnt sacrifice," Isaac said, puzzled. "But we only have wood. Where is the animal we're supposed to sacrifice?" Abraham hesitated, unsure of how to answer his son's question. Finally, he looked away and replied, "Tell me, father, where is the animal?" "Son," Abraham began, his voice filled with faith, "I trust in the Lord completely. He will provide the animal for the sacrifice." Abraham and Isaac continued their journey to the mountaintop, and upon arrival, Abraham began constructing the altar using stones and wood. As he worked, tears flowed silently down his cheeks. "Why are you crying, father? What's wrong?" Isaac asked, concerned. Abraham hastily wiped away his tears and mustered a sad smile for his beloved son. "It's nothing, my child, nothing." Despite his unwavering faith in God, Abraham couldn't shake the heaviness in his heart at the thought of sacrificing his cherished son. However, the idea of disobeying God never crossed his mind. Slowly, Abraham gathered large rocks and stacked them one by one, forming an altar. Carefully, he arranged the wood over the stones. Once the altar was prepared, he tenderly bound his son's arms and guided him towards it. Isaac, filled with horror, remained silent. "My son, I can't express how much this pains me, but it's something I must do. It's my promise to God. Please, son, never doubt my love for you," Abraham whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. Taking a deep breath, Abraham lifted the knife high above his head. Just as he was about to bring it down upon his son, an urgent voice cried out to him, "Stop, Abraham! In the name of the Lord, stop! You will not harm your son." Abraham heard a voice call out. Looking up, he saw an angel standing there, gazing at him with a gentle smile. "God is very pleased with you. You were willing to obey his command and sacrifice your beloved son, demonstrating that your love for him surpasses everything and everyone," the angel declared warmly. "But now, you need not sacrifice your son." Abraham couldn't believe his eyes. With a deep sigh of relief, he knelt down, arms outstretched. "Praise be to my Lord, the Master. The Lord will bless you with descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and the grains of sand on the beaches. You are truly blessed by the Lord," the angel proclaimed. "Glory to you, O God! I am deeply grateful," Abraham exclaimed with gratitude. Rising to his feet, Abraham approached his son and gently untied him. "Come to me, my precious child. You know that I love you dearly, but I had to obey the command of my Lord." "I understand, Father, and I never doubted your love for me," Isaac reassured him. Father and son embraced each other with overwhelming joy. Suddenly, Abraham heard a rustling sound nearby. Glancing around, he spotted a ram caught by its horns in a bush. Without hesitation, he went to it and offered it as the sacrifice in place of his son. Holding his son's hand, they turned to make their way down the mountain. This place shall be called Jehovah-Jireh, which means the Lord provides. Those who love him will always have his blessings, Abraham proclaimed, his heart overflowing with gratitude. Abraham and Isaac descended the mountain, their faith in God reaffirmed, their bond stronger than ever. Abraham returned to his servants, who awaited him with anticipation. Together, they went on the journey back to Beersheba, Abraham's hearts filled with gratitude and awe at the miraculous intervention of God. Upon their return to Beersheba, Abraham resumed his life, continuing to dwell in the land that God had promised him. With Isaac by his side, he carried on his journey of faith, trusting in the Lord's guidance and provision every step of the way. The story of Isaac shows how much Abraham was ready to do for God. Abraham was willing to sacrifice his only son, just as God later sacrificed his own son for all people. Abraham trusted God completely, believing that God would provide what was needed for the sacrifice. And indeed, God did provide a ram instead of Isaac. After the big test on the mountain where Abraham almost sacrificed his son Isaac, things went back to normal, but soon there was sadness. Sarah, Abraham's wife and Isaac's mother, passed away when she was 127 years old. Abraham was very sad and bought a piece of land with a cave in it from a man named Ephron. This place, called the Cave of Machpelah, is where he buried Sarah, and it became the family's burial place for generations. Thinking about the future, Abraham wanted to make sure his son Isaac would have a good wife. So, he sent his most trusted servant back to his old home to find a wife from his own family. The servant came back with Rebekah, who married Isaac. As time went by, Abraham got married again to a woman named Keturah. They had 6 sons together: Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Abraham's family got even bigger because of this. When Abraham got very old, he died at the age of 175. Both of his sons, Isaac and Ishmael, who hadn't always been close, came together to bury their father next to Sarah in the cave of Machpelah. Abraham left behind a large family who would remember him and carry on his story. This story foreshadows God's ultimate sacrifice of Jesus, who was unjustly punished but became the way for humanity to be forgiven. Through Jesus, God showed his love for us and his willingness to do anything to save us. We can trust God with everything in our lives because he loves us so much and wants to bring us back to him. Alright guys, we've come to the end of this video, and if you enjoyed it, do well to click on the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to check other videos on our playlist. We've got some amazing contents for you. See you in our next video.